Hello everybody. In our series of Bible characters, we come today to Sarah, the wife of Abraham. I wonder, when you think of Sarah, what goes through your mind? Do you recall that she gave birth to Isaac? Or do you think of when she and Abraham lied about being married, saying they were brother and sister, twice, once to Pharaoh and once to Abimelech? Or do you think of her and the maid Hagar having a bad relationship? Or do you think when she received the promise of a son to come, that she laughed in disbelief? Well, perhaps we should remember that in Hebrews, she is recorded as a woman of faith who trusted in a faithful God. And verse 11, just one verse we'll look at. By faith, Sarah herself received power to conceive when she was past the age, since she considered him faithful who had promised. So that's a clear testimony of Sarah, isn't it? That she was a woman of faith. But she'd had difficulty in her life. She had gone with Abraham when God called him at age 75 to leave their country, southern Iraq today, and go to Canaan, where God spoke to Abraham and promised him that the land would be his and he would become the father of a great nation. And so the years began to go by, but there was no child. Sarah would have had a great ache in her heart and a great yearning and longing for a child of her own. And how was the promise to be fulfilled? So she was almost 75 when she decided to take matters into her own hands, and she talked her husband into having a child with Hagar, her maid. When Hagar was pregnant, their relationship deteriorated, and Hagar despised Sarah, and Sarah was bitter. Then the child Ishmael was born, and the years went by as he grew to be 13. And then God came again to speak to Abraham and Sarah. He spoke through three messengers, three angels that came to them at Mamre. And he said two things. One was that Sarah's name would be changed. She was Sarai, and that meant my princess. How lovely is that? And it was to be changed to Sarah, one letter different, which meant princess to many. Why was that? Because God was saying she would be the mother of a great nation, just as Abraham had been told he would be the father of a great nation. And she would give rise to a line of royal kings through King David to the coming of the Saviour. And secondly, she was given a specific promise that in 1 year's time she would have a baby boy. Sarah, behind the curtain in the tent, laughed in disbelief. How could she, 90 years of age she would be then, how could she have a child when she was past childbearing age, past the menopause? It seemed impossible to her. And Abraham, her husband, would be 100 and as good as dead. And it actually says those words in Hebrews 11 in the next verse. Abraham was as good as dead. And the angels spoke again, or God spoke through those men to say, Sarah laughed. Is anything impossible with God? And she heard those words. And then, of course, a year later, she had the great joy of holding that baby in her arms. Isaac was born. And she was full of joy and praise and happiness, and she laughed. So a very different laugh this time, a laugh of rejoicing to the Lord, knowing that he had kept his promise, that he was faithful. So she'd had difficult years, and we all have difficulties in our lives, difficult days and difficult years. And I pray that we too might have faith like Sarah, faith in a great God for whom nothing is too hard, who is faithful and his promises are true and he keeps his promises. And I pray that you might find that true in your life today and tomorrow.